The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you.
All security!
What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and from the BJ and MIGS Show, the top-rated morning show on 99.9 KISW in Seattle, the host, BJ Shea, is on Hoppe Hour. What's up, man?
Hoppe, it's about time. What the hell, man? I was on one time before. I guess I must have broke the place. It's good to be back.
Dude, it's been a year and a half, and the first time I had you on, I wasn't as good of an interviewer. Like, I was just kind of repetitive, so it feels good to have a second chance with you.
Oh, are you kidding me? You're amazing. You're I mean, honestly, you're the best interviewer, really, that I've ever had today. I have to tell you. I mean, already I'm feeling the love, feeling the amazement. I mean, this is going to be the best interview that's ever been done in the history of histories, man.
What is your key whenever you have wrestlers in or comedians into The Rock? What do you guys do to make sure that your interviews are good, you and Migs?
Well, man, I think the key for me is knowing what I don't know. When it comes to wrestling, like Steve's the king. He knows what's up. And so I really let him carry a lot of those interviews. I mean, I have questions and stuff, and I'll watch videos to make sure I know at least a little bit about what's happening. But, for me, he's the king of that. And if there's something sci-fi or geeky happening, then Steve usually, he does his prep work too, but he usually lets me carry most of the interview. But he always has a good question. I always have a good question. It helps when you have multiple people. But either way, man, preparation is key. Just making sure you know about what's up. And for me, if I don't know enough and I don't feel comfortable, I just go, you know what? I decline. I pass on the interview because I don't want them to feel bad. I don't want to look like an idiot. So that's pretty much how I do it.
What are some of the weirdest interviews you've had in your long time in the radio business?
Well, I'll tell you, I've interviewed rock and roll guys. There was one rock and roll dude that Steve loved and couldn't wait to have on the show, and I basically got the guy to hang up in a minute because I was such a douche. But he was late. I was pissed. I wasn't exactly as kind and gentle as I am right now. He was a mega rock star. Steve was just mortified. He's like, dude, I've been waiting to talk to this guy since I was like 10, and he's gone. I didn't even get to say hi. And I was like, yeah, but I hated the guy. Certain comedians who, there's this one particular comedian who hated radio. He even wrote on his website how much he hated radio, and here he is doing an interview on a radio station, and he was just not into it. He just sucked, and I was just angry, but I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to get this over with and hang up the phone. But we have a phone system that's a little wanky and wonky, so it didn't hang up on him. So I thought I hung up on him, and I turned to Steve, and I said, that guy was the worst. I don't understand why he does these interviews. He hates us. He hates the business. And then he does a horrible interview. I don't know why he thinks that actually is good for anybody. Well, since I hadn't hung up on the phone, he heard it all, and he chimed in and said, yeah, you're right, dude. That was bad, and you're right. I don't know why I do these. And then I'm like, okay. We ended up having a really cool interview after that about why he has to do all this crap, and it was really very behind the scenes, and it was cool. And he's a really good comedian, so I was like, man, I'm glad we were able to sort of have this mess up bring us closer together. But those are the two weirdest interviews I could think of as far as just going south, man. But they're fun, I got to interview Maynard, and Maynard is just not a very talkative guy. And when we interviewed Maynard from Tool, I thought it went horribly. I just thought, my God, he hates me. He hates everything about me. And it's not like he said anything on air to make me feel that way. It's just because of his pacing. I thought, wow, he thinks this is horrible. I just had it all in my head. And then once we get done with the interview, his publicist said, dude, that was the best interview he's ever done. He loves it. And I thought, oh, they're blowing smoke. But turns out next time, Tool had something to do and they were doing a radio tour, like we got requested again to do an interview with him. And then I did the interview with him, and it went the same exact way, and he had a really good time. And so, sometimes you think an interview is going badly, but on the other end, the person being interviewed thinks it's awesome. So those three things stand out of my mind is just like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but hopefully it's working.
A lot of times these famous people or these comics in town don't want to get up and don't want to have to call in because it's so soon in the morning. So what do you guys do to make them feel comfortable, since a lot of times they don't want to get up to call a show or come to The Rock?
Well, when we're at morning show boot camp, Steve and I sometimes look at each other because this comes up a lot about guests and what to do with bad guests. And, Steve is really good at saying, this person I know will be good for our show and this person won't. And if I have a suggestion and say, hey, I want to put this person on, Steve will go, I just don't think that'll be the right fit. And I have to tell you, man, I can't remember the last time we had a bad guest. And we've been doing this for 10 years because we just know the right people to bring in. So we don't bring somebody in that doesn't want to be here. You know, I mean, sometimes we make a mistake or something happens, but I mean, I can't remember the last time. Usually the comics that want to come in, you know, they're just, you know, their names, they're performers, they get it, they want to have a good time. We're starting to get a reputation in the business that we're actually a decent show to be on because we share the mic time, we do our homework, it's a friendly place to be. So more and more people are happy to be on the show with us because our reputation sort of precedes us, especially in comedy, because comics tell each other about the different cities they're in and the different way the interviews go. And, you know, but we know what we're getting into. We know if we have, like, a guest that's really going to be a slow type of guest. Like, in other words, their pacing is slow, their energy is a little low, but we know that they're, like, what they have to say is going to be fascinating to our audience because we just know our audience. So we match it. You know, we don't try to make them feel bad. We don't try to make them be anybody who they're not. It's our job just to match the level of conversation. And if they're not, if they're not being what we expect them to be, then we've done a bad job because with all the YouTube videos out there and, you know, all the interviews you can watch of people, you kind of know what you're going to get. You just know the kind of person that's coming in. And so if they're not behaving the way you want them to be, and then you look at their videos and go, well, that's how they are in the video, then that's really my fault for not knowing that that's just who they're going to be. And so we know that. We just make sure we know the kind of person that's coming in, and then we just know what to expect of them because of all the homework we've done. And if they don't fit us or we don't think they're going to be good enough, we just don't have them on. We just say no, you know, politely and just move on, man.
Here's what I want to ask you. I do a show and I rant about the news, and often when there's nothing to rant about, I feel like I have nothing to talk about. And for you guys do 20 hours of radio each week. So how do you guys find content to talk about on a slow news day?
Well, you know, man, it comes, the older you get, the more you complain about everything. See, you're a young Hoppe. You got nothing to complain about. You got nothing to rant about because you're enjoying life. You're having a good time. When you get to be my age, everything's a complaint. There's not a shortage of being miserable. You know, it's the old person's disease. But, you know, really, seriously, you know, when you find out, like, I guess I just, you know, for me, is I just kept being this BJ Shea character on the show and just knowing that I'm just this curmudgeon. And, you know, I just have that in me. I'm just, you know, I've always been like this miserable guy that complains about everything. So ranting and raving has been my life. But now I just, you know, I look at things in the news, and as soon as you look at anything, like if you read a news story any day of the week, or if you're in the supermarket or anything, if you notice that something bothers you, I make a note of it. I put it down and go, okay, this person pissed me off, or this did this, or this did that. And it could be a conversation with friends. It could be parents. It could be anything at all that, you know, then you get to go to this deep philosophical argument about whatever. And, you know, like what you think is right, how the world should run. This is how everything should be. And then every time I read a story, I put it through that filter. It's like, you know, the United Airlines situation. I immediately know how I think life should be based on my own filter. You know, I'm a big customer service guy. I used to work in retail. So, you know, that's how I'm always going to approach it. Like, you know, you just don't treat people that way. I don't care how much of a drug dealer, person, whatever, you still don't. And so eventually if you train yourself, you'll be able to basically just know those moments will come up, and that way you'll always have something to talk about. Just to the point where someone can put anything in front of you, and you know how Hoppe's going to react. You know what Hoppe's take is going to be. That's what I do.
Now, isn't it kind of annoying going to the whole issue with United Airlines? Isn't it annoying that the media is trying to defend them by bringing up what the guy used to do back in the day by being a drug addict? Like, I don't know what that has to do with him getting beat up on an airplane, but that just may be me.
See, there you go. See, you got a take right there. And that's beautiful. I mean, you know, that's the beauty of what we do, man, is that there's always a take. There's always a viewpoint. You know, I do a lot of, I go to seminars and read a lot of stuff that allows me to get to that, you know, behavioral, psychological place where can I find another viewpoint? Can I find another opinion? And so for me, this idea that we are in a place in society where someone's always going to throw information out there to distract us from the truth of anything. That's where we are right now. I mean, the last political cycle shows us it doesn't matter, you know, what you are, Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Red Party, pedestrian, it doesn't matter. Somebody is always going to try to distract you from the truth. And so for me, that's where I go. I go, all right, well, I'm going to approach this from everything in my life. And so, yeah, you know that if a company feels like, oh, my God, our stock prices are going to plummet and everyone's going to hate us, what are we going to do? Oh, I know what we're going to do. We're just going to throw something out there to distract everybody. And, people are very, very happy about it. Pepsi is so happy that this United situation happened. And people can forget about that dumb, commercial with Kylie, Kendall, Cougar Mellencamp, Jenner, whoever the hell she is. So they're happy that somebody threw out distracting information. They didn't even have to do that. So that's what United's hoping for. They're hoping somebody does something stupid so that they can be off the news cycle and somebody else can be the subject of the American ire.
What do you think of the whole idea of fake outrage? Like, let's say with the Pepsi commercial where everybody gets offended by everything. Do you think it's a real problem here in 2017?
I call it thin skindrome. For some reason, everybody just believes they're entitled to be irritated over the dumbest little thing that may happen in their life that only really applies to them. You see in the world of stand-up comedy where people get mad at a comic because he does a joke or she does a joke about something. They go, you know what, my child has, my child has that disorder where they're afraid to walk into the middle of a supermarket and touch a grocery cart. It's just like, okay, so I can't do a joke about that? Too friggin' bad. I mean, Jesus. And that's thin skindrome. And yeah, right now, fake outrage seems to be, I think, an American entitlement. It's almost like, you know what? You have your freedom of speech and you have your fake outrage. You get both as you're born. Which cracks me up because really, I have to say, current American person has no idea what outrage really is, what's really outrageous. And you take a look at somebody's grandmother, grandfather, anybody who's alive that was around when World War II was happening. I mean, that was really an outrageous time where people were just treated like crap on every level around the world. That was, to me, outrageous. Now people go, can you believe there was a commercial where they gave a Pepsi to it? Oh, shut up. Like, you really... Be happy your life is that cool that seems outrageous to you. Because you know what? There were people that were getting bombs dropped on them, 50, 60 years ago. And you know what? I think they would love to have been, that luxurious. They could go, oh, look, a soda commercial has really irritated me.
And here's something I think I've brought up to you either on the show or at the boot camp, but wouldn't you say that the movie, the good old cult classic known as Idiocracy by Mike Judge is coming to life?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it really, you watch Idiocracy, that great movie, and you just can see, really, it's like the missing link between the future that they portray in that movie and where we are now, and you can see the missing links with all the different idiots and geniuses and morons that we have had in all walks of life, whether they be corporate CEOs or political figures, and it's just hysterical. I mean, it's unbelievable that you've got people who are representing the media, people doing this. It's a crack up, man. It's more and more. We have just got a guy going, leave me alone. I mean, we're not far from that, man.
So now, what I want to ask you too is, it seems like you guys have the most loyal fan base in all of rock radio. I mean, that whole town loves 99.9 KISW. What do you think you guys have done over the years to keep them tuned in?
Well, Seattle's a cool place. People are really, really very cool, friendly. There's a culture of collaboration. Temple of the Dog, that whole band really is a great example of that, where superstars from other bands are just getting together and the passion projects. I mean, the musicians, I think, set the tone, especially the rock musicians of this city. They set the tone. There's so much collaboration and cooperation. And so for us, being in a rock format, I feel like it's just through osmosis we get to be that way because the fans get it. And so if we as a radio show and a radio station didn't get it, I just don't think we'd fit in. I don't think we'd make it, which is like our whole station gets along. We have an amazing afternoon show. I mean, arguably people could say they're more popular than us. And we get along great with them. We get along great with our midday guy, Ryan Castle, and like I said, the men's room in the afternoon. And, Taryn at night. We are really like a big family. There's no fighting. There are no egos that get in the way. And that you see in the music community. And so we reflect it. And I just feel like because of that, we're just in tune with the culture of this city, which is different definitely than the culture of other cities. I mean, the rock listener in Seattle is different than the rock listener in Cleveland, and different than the rock listener in Boston, and different than the rock listener in Miami. They're all very different, and for us, we just know the culture of our area, and I think that's the key to our success. Plus, our program director and assistant program director, they're just amazing. Those guys, they just know their stuff. Yeah, they really do.
So what was the ultimate choice to change the name to BJ and Migs? What was the thought process for doing that?
Well, I know you're going to talk to Steve later this week, and
yes.
So I think it's really. So I'm going to tell you the real story. Steve paid me. He just came and basically said, "Look, my wife, it's either A, she goes to college, or B, I get the name changed. So my wife's just going to have to, she's just going to have to be a dishwasher her entire life. And by the way, not even a dishwasher at a good restaurant. She's just going to be out in an alley washing dishes for nobody in particular." And that. So I said, "All right, well, fine. That, you know what? I'll take the money and that's how we changed his name." I just think it's, to me, I remember years ago, I remember that Scott Shannon, huge in our industry, all of a sudden started calling his show the Scott and Todd Show. And I had never heard from Todd. And of course, now Todd is doing a great show in New York on his own with Jade, as a matter of fact. And I never heard of Todd. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. How is he all of a sudden the Scott and Todd Show? It really just struck me as like, wow, that's very, very interesting. And I just put it on file in my brain. I never thought of it, really much. And then Steve comes up to me and he says, "Look, man, I'm tired of being Steve the producer. I never liked the name. He just felt like it wasn't a respectful name and wanted to change it." And I call him Steve on the show. We never called him the producer except in like the bumpers or whatever that we did, and liners and stuff. But I just always called him Steve. So I said, "I don't care. Sure, let's change your name." And as I talked to him more about it, he was like, "Yeah, it's good. I'll get some respect in the building, respect in the business." And I thought, "Oh, you want respect in the business?" I go, "Well, sometimes people in our industry, they just don't understand that, who does the work and who's really valuable, because they just look at a name and go, 'You're the producer. What do you do?' Which, I don't know how many times you got to go to boot camp and teach and see Tommy Sablon and realize that the producer's job is ridiculously amazing, and Tommy is one of the best in the business, and one of the reasons why Jeff and the Showgram and Jeff and Jer before that have had the success they've had. Yet there are people in our business that still disrespect producers, though Tommy has been a shining example, like many others, of how a producer is amazing, and you should give them a lot of love, and they probably have more on the ball than the average host." But I knew that was the case. So I said to Steve, "Well, if you really want respect and you want people to see just how much of a contribution you're making, then we just got to put you on the show. You've got to be an equal show member. Then at that point, that's the only way you're going to get that." And Steve said, "Oh," and I go, "You know what? Why don't we do that?" I go, "We've been doing this for how long?" I go, "What the heck? Let's call let's get you on the show." And so then he got together with the PD and decided what name they wanted to call Steve, and it became BJ and Migs, and that's how it happened. And part of it was because I remembered Scott and Todd, and I thought, it sort of clicked with me. It's like, I bet Scott just felt like this is the way it should be. This is the natural progression of Scott's career at the time. Instead of the Scott Shannon Show, it was the Scott and Todd Show. And as it turned out, it worked out real well. And so I figured, all right, BJ and Migs, I feel like this is the way it should go. It just seems like it's the right thing to do. And I think it's gone over really well for everybody. I just kind of like it. I've never been part of a DJ in anything show. It's either been I've been part of another show where I've been a side player and it was that main name show, or it's been my show. And I've never had a partnership show like the Mark and Brian's and all that. And I kind of think that that's cool. So I'm digging it. I like being part of that kind of a thing that I never was part of before.
What are some of the best parts about working with Migs? I mean, you've known the guy more than a decade now. So what are some of the good parts about him? And what are some things he does that annoys you?
Wow. One of the best parts of working with Steve. Crap. Damn, usually I'm not stumped on a question. Man, you should have said that ahead of time there, Hoppy, so I could come up with some lies. Damn. You know what? I mean, look, there's not enough good stuff I can say about the guy. He's one of the most talented guys I've worked with. And frankly, if I was a jealous type and an envious type, I'd hate him and want to get him off the show, because I've never seen anybody who can do so many things as well as he does and then also do them at the same time. Watching Steve, somebody should come in and just film Steve do his job when we're working on the show. It's insane. I mean, the guy is sending like thousands of emails. He's coming up with bits. He's writing the liners and the teases. He's in the middle of editing audio. I mean, he's insane. And yet, when we flick that microphone on, he is completely engaged and knows what's going on. There's only one guy who I saw had that kind of mind that could do that, and that was Tom Likas. Tom Likas had a mind that could follow so many different conversations and be there. It'd be like his focus was amazing. And so looking at Steve, I'm just amazed at his focus, because my focus, man, I'm lucky if I can keep track of the thing we're doing at that moment and be somewhat coherent. That to me is a joy to watch with Steve, just because of the fact that, he's just unbelievable. I've enjoyed watching his growth over the years and seeing how he's really gone from being a side guy to a third guy to a second guy to a co-host to pretty much the executive director of the show. He and the PD are the ones that plan things, and Steve really has the vision for the show, and and the PD will offer advice, but it's Steve's show. I mean, I've really enjoyed watching that. I've watched and seen a guy who has the skill set to be able to do it. I mean, honestly, I shouldn't be running anything, and I tried to for so many years. And frankly, I'm just, just send the idiot on stage, let him perform, and then tell him to go home. That's really what I should be doing, and really having a guy like Steve on board has allowed that to happen. One of the best in the business. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Now, you got to work with Brother Wease back in the day, and he taught you a lot, and he's one of your known mentors. So what are some of the best lessons you've ever learned from the legend known as Brother Wease?
Boy, I will tell you, the best lessons that I've learned from Wease, man, is he just did not listen to anybody. He, what I mean by that is that he would take in information, but he wouldn't just all of a sudden go, oh, well, I better listen to this person because they're this or that. Wease had his own internal compass, his own guide. He knew what was good, and for the longest time, I just couldn't do that. I would listen to people, then it would be wrong, and then I'd be miserable, and I'd like, why are we not successful? And then I would get angry, and that was just the story of my life. And then getting to work with Wease and realizing this guy knows what's right for him, and he's just going to do what's right for him, and he did it in a non-combative way. I mean, Wease was definitely a feisty guy, but he knew when to just get along with people, and if you will, just, he would be like, hey, that's a good idea, I'll give it some consideration kind of attitude. And, whether he did it or not, he was always friendly about it. It seemed somehow a way to be able to manage management, where I was much more of a bull in the china shop, and I would just scream and yell and claw and fight, and so that was something that took me a long time to learn from Wease. He also has like the biggest heart. I learned why he was so likable, why his show was so successful, is because no matter what he was talking about, his heart was the filter. And I never knew that. I was so lost in my own misery and never realized what made him great. That's what makes all great performers successful, is their hearts shine through their performance. And it doesn't matter, if they're if like Don Rickles is the perfect example, who just passed away. You knew the man had a big heart, even though he was doing the kind of material he was doing. And everybody's tributes, as you saw on Twitter, to him, where especially Jimmy Kimmel's emotional goodbye to him, was the fact that off the stage, Don Rickles was an amazing guy, and Wease the same way. I mean, the guy is probably one of the most lovable, biggest, hardest guys you'll ever meet. An amazing talent, to the point where he doesn't even have a clue how good he is. He just knows what he wants to do in the moment. Never really thinks he's good amongst his other peers, and I always tell him, I go, dude, you're one of those guys that you just have no idea how great you are. So I learned how to, really come from my heart. I learned how to do what I thought was right and not need other people's approval. That was probably the best thing I learned from him, as well as just listening to him how to tell stories. He's one of the greatest storytellers our business has ever seen. And if I picked up 25% of that, I'm a lucky man.
Is it crazy to think that you and Opie worked together and now you guys are big names in radio? Is it crazy to think that you guys first were kind of like interns and co-hosts for the show, and now 20 years later you guys are doing your own thing separately?
It's crazy for me to be saying I'm doing it. When we first met Opie, you just knew. I mean, Opie, you just knew great things were going to happen to him. And that's, I think, why people end up gravitating to great shows. You see it with Kevin and Bean and all the great people that have come through their show, including Jimmy Kimmel. And it's the same thing with Wease. You could just tell people who want to win, people who are really great talents and just have a passion for whatever it is they're doing, in our case, radio. they're attracted to other people like that. So, we met Opie. We hung with Opie. Opie was, you just knew it. You just knew. So, I'm happy for both of us. And, it's great. Opie and I talk maybe once, twice a year, but it's like, we just always had a great affection for each other. He has been so kind to me over the years. And I love the dude. No matter what's going on in Opie's radio life, on, off air, I just, he comes from that Wease school where Opie comes from his heart. And people can say whatever they want, but Opie has created such great talent. So many people, we're used to in the world of comedy, and all of it has been because of what, Opie has done over the years. And he's a great dude. That's the other thing, is that I just love the dude. And of course, he's part of the Wease family. It makes complete sense to me.
So this might be the most bland thing I'll ever ask you, but what is the key for young people like us trying to make it in radio? What should we do to put our name out there?
Well, I'll tell you this, Hoppy. As far as getting your name out there, that's a really good question. I don't know if I've ever been a great publicist or even a self-promoter. I don't know if I'm really that good at that. The best advice I tell anybody who's young, though, or anybody who's in this business, is just to surround yourself with positive people. There's enough negativity in our industry, or any industry for that matter, any kind of performance industry, really. It's not just radio. There's just enough negativity out there. And, there are people that are afraid of young talent. There are people that they have their own agenda. Therefore, they're going to be mean. They're going to be upset. They're just going to lash out. They're going to tell you not to be in the business. And I would tell a guy like you or anybody, I'd say, hey, man, you know what? Just get around people that will tell you what's cool about the business, and that will give you some good advice and really, uplift you a bit. That's the best thing to do. As far as getting your name out there, Hoppy, you do a good enough job because you're a connector, man. You're always calling people on their phone. You're always going to conventions. You're always doing what you can. You're always trying to learn, always asking for help. And, I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing that a young dude like you loves our business the way you do. You remind me, it's the same thing I think of with Art Volo, the guy, radio's best friend. Art's on the other end of life, He'll hate me for saying that. He's got less years in front of him than behind him. And it's the other way around for you. But I see the common thread I see in you and in Art Volo is you guys love this business. You just love it. All you want to do is just be swimming in it. And, that's why I love guys like you. I love guys like Art, because it's great to be around people that really care about the art of radio and the coolness of radio and everything that makes this crazy business something fun to be in. So, you just keep doing what you're doing and find people that know how to do stuff like that. Ask that question to everybody, because someone's going to have a good answer for you. I'm just not really experienced in that. I've been fortunate that other people have been able to promote me and put stuff out there, and I just believe in the content, the art of it, and sometimes that really gets the attention. But then there are other people who do it so well. Dwyer and Michaels, man, I thought those guys were always brilliant in how not only did they do great content, but they were always really good at letting people know they're doing that great content. So if you've never talked to those guys, I think they're a good two guys to talk to, because they were, Jeff and Jer, Jeff now, another one, man. Those guys were always just so good at letting people know what they were doing, and they were always doing brilliant stuff. So yeah, I would say talk to Jeff or Tommy, talk to Dwyer and Michaels, and Bert's another great guy that and Paul Castronovo. Those guys are so good at just getting the word out about all their great stuff that they do.
Now, before I let you go, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you going to keep doing the show, or do you see yourself giving up soon?
Where do I see myself in 5? Do I see myself giving up? You know what, dude? I gave up on life a long time ago. It's just, it's been a slow death for me. I whatever pills I took, I guess it's just taken a while. Where do I see myself in 5 years? That's a question that I've always said. I have no clue. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I see myself, at least, I want to be something positive for the industry. I want to be able to be somebody that if you listen to me speak, you walk away from the conversation feeling better. Because I've been around too many people over the years who I thought, wow, they've had great careers, and yet it seems like they're miserable. And people who've known me know that I've been miserable, but I also didn't have a great career, so I had a reason for not being, for being miserable. I sucked. But now I really want to be that guy. I want to be that guy that you walk away from the conversation, walk away from any time you hear me speak, and you feel better about whatever it is you were thinking about, what you're doing. So I definitely want to be that guy. And, you know, my contract will be up in 2018. I'm hoping that I get to do another contract because I'm loving what I'm doing, and the company and I are getting along great. And I'm hanging with Steve and everybody on our show, and the job is fun. So at this point in my life, even, you know, if I'm in my, and this is another thing that Wease does that inspires me. The guy is, I think he just, you know, he's 70 years old, and you talk to Wease, and it's like he's a 20-year-old kid in the business. So as long as I feel like Wease does, there's no reason I can't do this job in one way, shape, or form. You know, whether I get too old for the format and they put me somewhere else, I don't care. If they give me a microphone and it's enough money that I can pay my bills, boom, why not? Why wouldn't I be doing this until somebody hauls me away? Why not?
Now, for people that don't live up in the Pacific Northwest, how can they listen to your show?
Well, you know, man, we've got the KISW app. That's KISW. The app's on iTunes. It's on Android. You can listen to us on TuneIn. I know Alexa has us on there on the Echo. I forget exactly. I got to remember exactly how you get us. I think you can say, "Hey, Alexa, play BJ MIGS." Live, you can just say, "Alexa, play KISW Radio in Seattle," and she'll find you. We have a website, KISW.com, lots of podcasts as well as live streaming. So there's a lot of ways to do that, and we have unique podcasts, not just like replays of the main show. So there's a lot of ways you can hear us if you care to. You know, that would be cool if you do. And if you do, and you've never listened to us before, feel free to drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Even if you hate us, you know, we read all that too.
Well, dude, keep up the good work, man. Thank you for everything over the past 4 years. I appreciate you having my back, and I appreciate you coming on Hoppe Hour again.
Hoppe, dude, lots of love to you, brother. I mean, you know what? You've had quite a journey in your young life in this business, and, you know, I'm always happy to have you back, brother. Good to talk to you.
Sounds good. I will see you in a few months at the boot camp.
Yeah, buddy, that'll be fun. First drink's going to be on Steve.
All right.
And listen, make him pay for once in this goddamn life.
Sounds good. Thank you, BJ.
All right, take care, buddy.
All right, bye.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.